Hey, welcome back to Bullpen Sessions. I am excited to have anytime I get to have a former athlete, especially a pro athlete, join Bullpen Sessions who also now finds himself in the same industry I do, the insurance industry. It is a pleasure. And today is going to be one of those days. So, Chris Carter, welcome to the Bullpen Sessions.
I appreciate it, Andy. I've actually followed you even before we got connected, of course, and I appreciate having an opportunity to at least have a conversation with you.
You bet, man. No, I was looking forward to this one. And if you're listening just on the audio, you can't see the video. I do want to make a clarifying point. This is not the wide receiver from the Minnesota Vikings.
Yeah, you do have to make that statement.
Which I was thinking about the other day, Chris. I'm like, he was probably the greatest sideline receiver I'd ever seen when it comes to like dragging your feet in for the first down.
Well, people don't recognize this, but he was not a little guy. He was every bit of 220 while he was playing at 6'2", 6'3".
Yeah.
So in terms of what you see now in the game of receivers being, jiggle bunnies that have a lot of speed, a lot of agility, he was more of a tight end type receiver. But it didn't matter. He was always open because he really knew how to position his body.
Yeah.
So those catches that you saw, he did that inside the field as well because
Wow.
he knew he wasn't necessarily going to break away from the defender, but he was going to position his body just like an elite rebounder would, to where he was going to catch the ball and you couldn't get to it. So he was one of the first to really, one of the first of our generation that really took that to home.
Well, good segue because we just kind of gave it away now. Chris Carter, whom I'm speaking to, his job was to defend these guys.
Yeah,
And
yeah,
so we'll
exactly.
get into that. But let's start with the childhood, Chris. Where'd you grow up?
East Texas, born in Paris. Most people don't even know that there is a city in Texas called Paris. So there is a Paris, Texas, not Paris, France. So I'm a country boy, born there. Grew up about 100 miles south of there in Tyler, Texas. Actually, great program, great football school, a lot of great connections, great contacts. I really had a good nurturing community around me. And really, to be honest, everything that happened after that really came from that nurturing community that supported me there.
Yeah, and we're going to talk about that. I'm curious because I'm sure there's some people listening who would love to get this perspective. What was it like to play football, high school football in the state of Texas?
Oh, it's you know what, I want to say it's unique, but I only know high school football in the state of Texas. I'll say this: I have, after playing in an NFL, of course, I have a number of colleagues who are now raising their kids with me and my kids here in the state of Texas. They come from California, they come from Mississippi, they come from Chicago. I have another colleague that actually comes from the East Coast, Pittsburgh area, and they all say the exact same thing: is that it's insane. They say it's insane, which for me it's just normal. But yeah, that's kind of what, when you grow up in that society, when you grow up in it, it's kind of expected. So when you don't see that, you really get a bad taste in your mouth for the program. So it's hard for me to describe it because I've always been inside of it.
Yeah, and I remember, was it Allen, Texas, when they first unveiled their $60 million high school football field? It's like
Right, right.
it is at a different level. So the people who know you say, all right, Chris was a D-back. What led you, playing football as a kid? Did you play multiple positions or did you always gravitate to the defensive backfield?
Yeah. So not just football of itself. Of course, I played multiple sports. Baseball was my first love. Actually, still is the top love for me. Spent a lot of time playing baseball, basketball, running track, football. When it came to football, football was interesting in that where I grew up in Tyler, um, I actually probably was not even good enough to make the blue team. In seventh and eighth grade, as you in ninth grade, you have the best of your ninth graders or eighth graders, and then you have another team. The blue team was that team. The white team was the alternate team. The only thing that I would say was, because I wasn't the fastest, and I say this all the time, I could not, I literally, from where you want to talk about high school football in Texas, I literally could not be part of any of the 4x1 teams, the 4x2 teams, the 4x4 teams on our track team because I wasn't inside the top 15 in my high school as far as speed. However, then I go to Texas and then I'm like literally in the top 5 of speed at the University of Texas. So that kind of tells you the type of talent that we had, the country boys in the country schools. We had a lot of talent. So what led me to be a D-back was the fact that my school didn't throw much. I actually started out being a quarterback, hence also the baseball career and all the other components. I like to throw. I was a throwing quarterback, and my school ran the ball 90% of the time. So I transitioned from being a quarterback to being a tight end, wide receiver, and D-back. So that's kind of how it happened. So I kind of was molded into a DB because of what was there around me and where the coach saw the best use of my talents for the program we were running.
Yeah, it's interesting. I would love your take because you talked about playing multiple sports, right? And that was definitely the theme of the day back in the day when you and I were growing up. Today, you see so much specialization, right? Because the travel ball and all these clubs that these kids have to be on. What are your thoughts as a parent of a youth athlete? Should they still desire to play multiple sports, or have we reached a time where it is, unfortunately, you're going to have to specialize? What are your thoughts on that?
So there are 2 rules of thought, and I still am old school. I'm just going to give you my main point initially, but also will kind of issue that counterpoint. When you're developing as an athlete, when you're developing as a kid, when you're developing as a youth, if you specialize too early, in my opinion, you're not able to develop all of the aspects of your body physically, mentally, intellectually, understanding concepts, games, if you specialize too early. For example, and I do this with my kids now. I have a 16-year-old and a 14-year-old boy and a 12-year-old daughter. They're all in sports. My 14-year-old absolutely hates football, loves basketball, but many of the footwork drills, and he's a fairly large kid. He's about 6'4", about 220 now. He's a ninth grade.
Wow.
So, of course, they want to put him on the line, which is fine for me from football. He hates football. But the footwork drills that he gets from having to stay in front of somebody as an offensive lineman and block somebody that's oncoming to you, that's trying to either bull rush you or go around you with speed and all those other components, those drills where you have to do it with power are drills that you will not do in basketball. You just won't do them. So what has happened is he's been able to translate those drills, even though he hates football, and I'm just really having him do kind of off-season football, those sort of things. This actually might be the first year he plays football if he decides to. Not really forcing football on him, but letting him understand you got to do all these other things. So in so doing, he's able to translate that into basketball where now he's that size, and it's hard for bigger guys to go around him because he's used to guys coming at him with force, and smaller guys to go around him because he's used to moving his feet and having to stop speed. Those are things that are different that translate to the basketball court. He's been able to develop those. So I'm just using that as an example for us. But also, again, I'm very old school when it comes to that. I really think you want to develop all aspects of understanding the mentality of sports in and of itself, the competitive portion of that. Now, the flip side of that is, unfortunately, basketball is the best example, of course. Basketball recruiting it's literally at the AAU level, the camp level. That's literally where it is. So it's very rare that kids are found in their high schools for basketball. They're literally found on the courts of the camps and the AAU programs. That's where they're found. So if you're trying to move, you do need to kind of be a part of those programs now to be seen. Same thing with football. I have one of my best friends has a son who is a sophomore in high school football. He has not played football. He has not played varsity football as of yet. And he was already discovered and now is already being recruited by Division I schools because they saw him at camps and he was throwing to other athletes that were, already in a Division I situation. So he's not played a down of varsity football yet. And already under the radar because he was in those camps. So that's my counterpoint. But as far as overall development, I think you definitely want to do it all.
Yeah, no, you and I are very aligned there. I look at my nephew, who just graduated from high school, and big legs, baseball player, just powerful legs. He would not have had those legs without playing hockey.
Mhm.
You know, he
Exactly.
got that strength in his legs from playing hockey and skating, and it's bananas. I got a chance to attend a couple of his games at the end of his season this year, and I was talking to a friend of mine who also had a son playing, and just talking about recruiting these days. There was a dad at this game who has a son going into his freshman year who's already committed to a school to play college baseball. He hasn't even entered high school yet.
Hasn't even entered high school yet.
But what we talked about was, how about the kids that blossom late? What about the kid that gets really good his or her junior or senior year? It's almost like they don't have a chance now, because all these kids are being discovered as freshmen or sophomores.
Well, the thing about those kids, and I will say this as a caveat as well, I was actually one of those kids. I blossomed really late. You think about Jimmy Butler in basketball. Jimmy Butler blossomed extremely late. He went to Tyler Junior College, which is a junior college in Tyler.
Ended up at Marquette right over here in Milwaukee.
Ended up going to Marquette. Now he's, everybody knows about him at Miami, even though he's had some stops along the way. There are a number. Giannis, even though you talk about him, he didn't even play basketball. He was doing soccer, and you think about Akeem Olajuwon. These are guys that didn't really play basketball. They played soccer, doing some other things, and basketball came later. There is a pathway, but you're exactly right. It's a smaller window. It's a smaller window, but there's definitely a pathway for those. So don't give up hope. It's definitely a pathway, but you're right. It's a smaller window.
Well, let's get back to your career, because one thing I'd love to know, I can remember still sitting on a bus in Helena, Montana, going to one of our games, playing in the Milwaukee Brewers organization, and literally sitting across from me in the bus was one of my teammates, a shortstop who played at Texas. And he was giving his experience of playing at Texas. And I was like, oh, and I get a chance to interview a lot of athletes, college athletes on this podcast, but you got a chance to play D-back at the University of Texas. Let's call it the wealthiest athletic department in the country. What was that like?
It was awesome. To be honest, the big thing about me when I was a kid, things are different now. Social media and everything else. We didn't have that. I was there from 93 to 96. We had we had success when I was there. Texas has had varying levels of success, high levels of success, and then a period of drought, which we hope we're coming out of right now. But the biggest thing for me while I was there wasn't necessarily the program itself, even though I understood the magnitude. Well, I can't really say I understood the whole magnitude, but I understood it was a big time program, was the actual colleagues that I had there. So the people that I met, the individuals that I met, who are now my best friends, some of them are business partners right now, that was the most awesome opportunity in the world that any athlete or any person could have ever experienced. Now, granted, I'm pretty sure, and I know that those opportunities are available in other colleges. To answer your question, as we've grown and as we've kind of interacted with the university in different components, now we more so understand the magnitude of not only our accomplishments while we were there, but what was really going on behind the scenes and what was available to us after the fact than we knew when we were there. For example, when I went to play in NFL, I met, of course, members from just about every other high profile college. And I'm not going to name any colleges because I don't want to make this sound like I'm poo-pooing on other colleges. I'm not. But literally their experience in college, almost to a T, was not the same as ours. And I didn't understand it. Again, just like we talked about before about growing up in Texas and experiencing Texas high school football. And so you thought that was the norm. Being part of Texas, the University of Texas football, you expect certain things are the norm when it comes to that. And when you find out later that it's not the norm, you're like, oh, crap, we had something special. So I'm answering your question. I didn't really know it then. It was really more the friendships and the relationships that we shared there were absolutely awesome. But you can believe that right now we understand that was something special in the outset of everything that was around us.
I'd love to get your opinion because, when I went to play baseball at the University of Wisconsin-Milwaukee, we were more of a mid-major. We weren't high Power 5 baseball, but every kid that comes in, and this is probably it's very true at the University of Texas. Every kid is a hometown hero, right? Every kid was an all-state player.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden now you're putting a whole team together. And I sat there and I looked and I go, so we got a team of all-state players, all-stars here. What made some excel and what made some fizzle out? Because they all come in with talent.
Yeah.
In your opinion, what do you think? You're a guy that was able to go play at UT, then take it to the next level to have the opportunity to play in the NFL. What do you think separates those guys that went on to even get better and those that you're like, man, you have all the talent in the world. What the heck happened?
Yeah. So I actually feel like I have a good understanding of that, only because, again, that kind of touches me and some of my teammates directly. Before the ranking systems were where they are now, we actually recruited 3 of the top 5 defensive backs in the country at that time. Myself, a colleague of mine, Trey Thomas out of Sugarland, another colleague of mine, teammate Bryant Westbrook.
Mm-hmm.
We had a really, really good secondary. And we all played as freshmen. We had it was rare to get, at that time, it was rare to get that collection of talent for a specific position at one place at the same time. The thing that actually made us really, really, really good was that, number one, we absolutely loved each other. It was a really good bond that we had, and we came from all diverse types of backgrounds. We did, but when we met there was something that bonded us together, and it hasn't ended. The other component of that was we competed against each other like crazy. Each and every last one of us, our biggest competition wasn't against those that were outside of the organization. It was actually inside every day, nonstop. And we drove ourselves insane to be better than my teammate, to be better than my roommate. Trey was actually my roommate. Bryant was as well at one time. We were trying to be better than each other. And in so doing, we made each other better than what we would have been without each other. And I'll inject this other point. So we almost had 4, and I'm not going to name a name or anything. It'll be hard for people, hopefully, to put this, because I don't want to bring. We almost had 4 of the top 5 defensive backs in the country. The other defensive back decided to go to a different school, a very good school, but a different school. And because he said he thought it was going to be too much talent in the room, he might not play. Literally, this was a quote from him. All right. I'm going to stop right there because I don't want to give too many indicators to where people might figure out who the person is, because he's actually a really good guy. But where he went, he did not have that same drive inside of his program.
Yep.
It didn't catapult him to where it could have been. You follow me?
Well, what you're saying, here's what you're saying, and it's true in business. Surround yourself with people who are at or better than where you're at, because it's going to force you to get better. If you come in and you are the star, it's easy to lose your juice.
Without a doubt. That's exactly what I'm saying. You want to be surrounded by top talent. You want to be surrounded by top talent. And you want that top talent to share a common goal. We did share a common goal. We wanted to not only get better ourselves, but we were about winning. We were about bringing it together. We fought for each other harder than we would have just fought for ourselves individually. So yes, it was that common goal. So if you have that from a business standpoint, I know that's a segue we'll go into later. That's definitely what you want.
Well, and I think there's a big lesson there. I mean, this is the problem I have with the transfer portal these days. There's a lot of good reasons for the portal, but I see a lot of kids use it as I didn't win the job, so instead of competing, I'm just going to go somewhere else. And then all of a sudden, before you know it, they're doing that 3 or 4 times. And you want to, it's all about what room are you putting yourself in. If you are in a room where everybody is killing it and they're as good, if not better than you, you're only going to get better. But if you show up in the room where you are the superstar, how are you going to get better from there? And that I have seen so many kids who want to go that route to be the star, and they don't ever level up much after that because of the fact they did not surround themselves with the people who are going to force them to get better. This is a good segue, because you then had a chance to live out a childhood dream of a lot of kids. You got to play in the NFL.
Yep, I did.
And I laugh because you hear this all the time. You think about some of the recent teams in the NFL, like the Lions or the Browns, those teams that went 1-15 or 0-16. And every year that happens, there's a conversation. Could Alabama beat the Cleveland Browns? And it's like the level of talent, even for the worst team in the NFL, is so much better than the best team in college football. What was that like for you going up? What did you see as far as the level of wide receiver talent? Because your job is to defend these guys. Was that a huge adjustment when you made it to the league?
So let me try to explain the answer this way. So you go into rookie camp, right? So you go into rookie camp initially. That's what when you get drafted, everybody's going to spend a week with just the rookies. And you're playing rookie camp with already some elite receivers because they were drafted as well. It's kind of cool, like man, this guy really is pretty good. This guy's really is good. You see them in practice. It's a little bit different. Then you go into preseason camp with all the veterans. And at that point, from rookie camp to preseason camp, it goes up a notch already. And you're like, oh, okay, this is what we're dealing with every day. Now, granted, these two notches that we going on are already exponentially higher than where we were even in a championship game of college, okay? So these two levels are already higher. Then you actually start playing preseason games, all right? And now people are engaged even more. They're in it even more. Some people are battling for jobs. And you're like, okay, this is even faster than what we thought it was. So before you've been in the NFL for 6 weeks, you've already graduated up 3 levels in terms of the level of competition. Then you go into regular season. The first regular season game, the level of competition is already extremely higher than the highest level of competition of preseason, which was already extremely higher than the highest level of competition from college. Then, if you're lucky enough, which we were lucky enough to do so, we had some pretty good teams, you go to the playoffs. And it's a whole new ball game. It's a whole new level. So to answer your question, the level of competition, when you talk about talent, remember I was telling you before, going all the way back to my high school days, I literally couldn't get on the field if it was just about talent itself, speed, size. I couldn't run for my track teams. I was running 4.3s, but I literally couldn't run for my track teams. That tells you the level of talent there. That level of talent follows you throughout your career. So I do want to say that. The speed that we had at the University of Texas, we had a guy named Lavelle Pinckney that was running 4.3s, and he was 240. He played wide receiver. We had another guy named Mike Adams. He was running low 4.3s. We had talent. There was talent there. But as you keep going up, the level of talent does not change. It gets a little bit better. So you do have those guys that you have more of it. That's one thing. But their level of being a pro changes. So instead of having a guy that says, okay, yeah, I can run 4.2, 4.3, and I can run by you. Remember, we're elite too on the defensive side. We're used to that. No, so instead of doing that, this guy knows that if you open up with your left, that's how specific it goes. If you open up in your back pedal with one step, one way, he knows that he's going to give you one move one way because he knows you're a little bit slower turning from your left to your right than your right to your left. That's how specific it gets in the NFL. You know, each step you train to review, you do videotapes, you're saying on tapes. For example, I played with Bill Belichick in New England. We wrote a book report on receivers and their releases. We wrote book reports. That's how specific it gets. So then you see people like Tyreek Hill, who is extremely fast, but he knows that if you open up a certain way, he knows which way he's going to break to give a certain move to then break into his own route to give you to make it the best advantage for him and the most disadvantage for you. That's where it changes. That's where you see this is not a game.
Well, and I think what you're saying is you hit a point where the gap in skill set gets so small. Yeah. It becomes a game of strategy.
It becomes a game of strategy.
It's those little nuances, the steps, the how they open. This is what I think makes pro baseball a little different, right? You get drafted or you sign as a free agent, you start at single A, then you go to double A, then you go to triple A, and then you make it. Where in the NFL, it's like you get drafted, you're right into training camp, and then you make it. It's a huge jump right away. Right. So before we wrap up the football career, and for the folks who do not know, you spent your NFL career with the Patriots, the Bengals, and the Texans, where you retired. Two questions I have just as a sports fan. Number one, fastest receiver you ever had to cover?
Oh, let's see. Fastest receiver I ever had to cover. Ooh, there are a number of really, 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 really fast receivers out there that I had to recover. So Marvin Harrison would probably be, I would put him at the top of one of he's definitely one of the fastest. Steve Smith as well. But I'd say Marvin, for the routes that they used to run, it became a game of speed because they used to run some max protection with Indianapolis that gave him the full field to run on, and they gave Peyton a whole lot of time. I'd say Marvin Harrison.
Okay. Then you brought up Chris Carter. You said 6'2", all of 240. It made me think of David Boston with the Chargers.
Similar size.
Who is the most physical receiver you cover where you're like, this guy is going to give me everything he got from a physical standpoint?
Yeah, I'd have to say Terrell Owens is one of the more physical guys. He wasn't the fastest, but he was about 220 as well. But he was faster than Chris Carter, a little bit more athletic than Chris Carter, but he was also physical. He played physical.
And he was a chiseled 220. Yeah. So was David Boston. Yeah.
Right. Okay. Played against David Boston as well.
I think he was 240 or 250.
Yeah, he was. He played out in Arizona. Exactly. Yeah.
Just insane. Okay. So whoever thought, here you are, nice NFL career. You decide, I'm going to go sell health insurance. So today you're the founder of Beneloyal Insurance Agency in Houston, Texas. For the folks listening in, there are a lot of advisors listening in. What made you decide to get into insurance?
So insurance itself, as a particular subset of what we're doing now, came as more of a need versus me pushing myself into the insurance. So started out my career actually owning staffing firms. I founded a staffing firm. This was 99 when we started a staffing firm. And I also owned, at that time, a gym. So started a personal gym. So to kind of get to where we are with the health insurance, transition from those components into working and training and assisting with teams within PEOs. And the biggest component to everything that I was dealing with within small businesses was health insurance. Health insurance reared its head daily, yearly, quarterly, and it was nonstop issues with making sure that things were not only provided, but they were kind of provided at a level that could be afforded at a certain level. So the specific transition to starting Beneloyal, which actually recently happened, was to address what I saw was initially a drop that became a pour, and now it's just the bucket is just being launched on small business owners in terms of what's happening in the health insurance market and their employees. And cost and actual value for that. So that's what kind of got me to say, hey, we got to address this one issue right now, which can be addressed and it's available to be addressed. But let's go ahead and address this.
Yeah, I mean, that's where we were going to spend the rest of our time here is talking about small business. When you look at small businesses still make up the vast majority of America, right?
Yep.
Where do you see limitations? So for those small businesses, I'm one of them myself. You're one of them. Where do you see limitations when it comes to something like providing affordable health insurance for a small business?
Yeah. So, that by itself is its own podcast, right? Yeah. I mean, literally, we could talk for hours on that. I've been in the small business space for over 20 years. When I say been in the small business space, talking about the things that we're talking about.
Provider and operator.
Exactly. When you talk about what's really the hindrances and the areas of which there's a lot. The first one I would say is really it's just knowledge. It's really the biggest component that is hindering small businesses is knowledge. Because let me change that. Very few are catering to small businesses. For example, you just said small businesses are a large subset of the population. Yeah. Over 40% of employees in America work for companies that have less than 200 employees. So almost half of America are in small businesses. that stat by itself is like, okay, wow, we didn't really know that. And then when you see that most of the resources for marketing are being spent on that other 55, 60% of the market, you recognize why small business owners aren't able to cater to their employees like they should. In 2022, there was over $22 billion of digital healthcare spend for businesses. Guess where? Well, digital healthcare investment, VC, private equity. Mm-hmm. Guess where that went? To that population that was not small businesses. It's crazy. It's absolutely crazy. So some of the things that are available, they are available to small businesses, and they just have no idea about them. Some of the other things require a little bit of automation, a little bit of proactivity from brokers like ourselves to actually bring those to the market. Some of those require a couple of partnerships, and that's what we're doing.
Well, and I think you bring up a good point because, advisors, our industry has started to kind of just poo-poo small business, right? Mm-hmm. I think there's been this push of, you got to go after these big accounts. And it's more for our ego than it is for anything else. Everybody's chasing to be this celebrity in the health insurance industry, which just makes me laugh.
Right.
And we're just completely ignoring the small business market because commission revenue is not good enough. And right. I think there's this misconception from small business owners as a result, and partly because of our advice we've given them. Not much you can do.
Yeah.
And I think you tend to disagree that even as a small business, you still have options when it comes to getting creative in finding affordable yet highly effective health insurance coverage for your employees. Would you agree?
Oh, without a doubt. It's absolutely available. Without a doubt, it's absolutely available. And you really just made a really good point because of the advisors that small businesses surrounded with themselves with. And because of them, the advisors themselves really kind of, and I don't want to, poo-poo too much on the advisors. They're running a practice. Mm-hmm. They're trying to make things best for their book of business as a whole. But many of the small business groups within those practices have been left behind from an outreach, from a marketing, from a understanding education. But there are absolutely caveats, technologies, programs that without a doubt can reduce costs, but also create a tremendous response for healthy outcomes for your population. Without a doubt, there are tons of them.
If you'd be willing to share a little bit, I'd be curious. Okay, imagine I am your prospect. I'm a small business. What advice would you give me? I'm sitting here going, I don't think I have any options, Chris. Like every year, my rates go up 19%. And I just kind of take it up the because I think that's all I can do. And I all I'm given is a spreadsheet of options and just pick the cheapest one. But guess what? Every year I do that, I feel like my coverage gets worse and my employees are only getting angrier.
Yeah.
What can I do?
Yeah. So the first thing that I'd say in your advisor, current advisor now, or any of the advisors out there, typically do a fairly good job of the first point, which we just got to understand you. We got to understand your business. Got to understand what you are trying to accomplish. Let's understand your population. Let's understand if you're in a rural community or urban community. Let's understand if you have a younger population versus a middle population. Let's understand if you have more women than men. Let's understand what's going on. The brokers and advisors that are, to me, at least worth a little bit of their grain of salt, they can at least do that. That's what should happen, period, point blank. Because it's not about solutions, it's about you as a business owner and your group, your population. And then once we have an understanding of that, the next thing that I would like to know is, what would you like to have happen? Now I have understanding of your group. What would you like to have happen? Many groups are in startup mode or growth mode. And right now they're trying to hire talent that's very, very hard to find. So you're, in essence, trying to compete for that talent. So what you would like to have is a benefit strategy that not only allows you to compete, but also you're a small business, right? So now you got to do a little something extra because you're competing against more than likely larger companies than yourself.
Yep.
How can you provide a benefits platform or strategy? I like to use the term strategy that's not only as good, but also a little bit better than what your competition has. And you're like, as a small business owner, how do I do that? That's when we start talking, because it is definitely available. It is definitely right now, you can actually access this and get this done for your small business and compete with the Fortune 500s and actually blow them out of the water.
Yeah, I agree.
And so the next part of that is, okay, let's just say, and I'm kind of walking through this hypothetical scenario for your group. Let's just say that's you. Okay, so you said we can compete, we can provide a strategy like this. The first part that many advisors, brokers, however you want to term it, go to is typically where they end. They talk about plans, PPO plans, HMO plans, high deductible health plans, looking at different carriers, Blue Cross, United, the Bucas over there, and they say, we're going to shop the market and look at all these options for you and come back with something. That's really nothing. I'm just going to be honest. That's nothing. That's not what you're paying your advisor to do. If that's the case, that's not what you're paying them to do. Number one, let's figure out if you're being underwritten correctly. Now, if you're a small group, you're an ACA and you're looking at, community rating, or if you're a larger group and you're inside a certain subset, why are you taking on underwriting, which happens in a certain fully insured environment, versus looking at other underwriting standpoints? That, of course, goes into like a level funded, self-funded. Let's just figure if you're underwritten correctly. Then let's go into what fits for your group. Now, once we do that, we're typically able to reduce some costs there, right? But the next component of this piece is the thing that small business owners have is the volatility of their population. If you're going from 15 to 20, you just change your population by 25% plus, right? That's a huge risk in terms of your insurance. Also, if you have 20, 25 members and you have 2 members that are high claimants, your plan is under some extreme exposure to increases, right? So there's a lot of things that are involved with that. Let's talk about that. But this is the thing that I want to say. You mentioned, how do small business employers recognize that there's something that is available to them that's different? And I use this analogy, or I use this term to say, do your members even know that by going to a different provider in network, or a different facility, or a different imaging center, that you can save thousands of dollars just by doing so in plan, in network? So let's just say we don't do anything else. We keep you in Blue Cross where you are. How about we give you the ability, and your members the ability, to navigate the health insurance that they have? So you have a Blue Cross, I'm just going to throw some things out. You have a Blue Cross Blue Shield, $2,500 high deductible health plan. And you have a member that needs to go get an MRI. These are the ones people use all the time. Let's just get an MRI for my knee. In network, in Blue Cross Blue Shield, just utilizing the network, in Blue Cross, the cost ranges from $300 to over $3,600 for the exact same MRI. But your members don't know that, nor did you as a business owner know that. So how about we change the equation and allow your members to be able to utilize that type of service, that type of transparency, that type of understanding. So guess what happens to your claims when you're doing that the following year? Drastically reduced. That is whether you're on a fully insured plan, level funded, or self-funded plan or not. That's what's available to small business owners, and they have no idea that's available. So if you want to change that, it's really more about that educating the employers. And then, of course, the crux of it is educating the members to change all that. And that is absolutely available for small business.
Yeah, no, I think what you just said was kind of the 101 that they all needed to hear. So many small business owners don't believe they have any options. So what is happening is their broker every year is just, we like to call it spreadsheeting. They're just giving them a spreadsheet of PPOs and HMOs. And
Right.
What you're saying that I heard very clearly, number one, it actually starts with financing.
Right.
You don't need to just pay for a fully insured PPO plan. Those can be extremely expensive.
Right.
2, if you're not leveraging technology today to be more efficient in what you provide with benefits, you got to leverage technology. And the third piece is the access. What are you doing to help your employees find good, high quality providers that can save them a ton of money?
Exactly. And so the end result of that is you're reducing costs for your employees, but you're also providing a higher level of care. So now morale goes up, productivity goes up. You're actually able to put in other plans that you wouldn't have initially thought of because guess what? Your overall healthcare costs are down. So now your healthcare strategy, health plan strategy becomes greater than your competition that is in the other Fortune 500 companies. And you have employees from other companies asking your employees, hey, how can I be a part of that?
I love it because I think as a small business owner myself, and I probably speak for others, a lot of small business owners probably have the chip on their shoulder that they are a small business owner.
Mhm.
And there are those that feel like, oh, I am small, I am who I am, I can't compete.
Mhm.
What we're saying is when it comes to health insurance and healthcare, oh, yes, you can. You have to challenge what you're being told.
Exactly.
Don't
Without
let
doubt.
don't let your broker just bring the same stuff every single year and tell you this is the way it is. It's
Right.
not.
Right. And some of that goes back to that analogy we were talking about in Texas high school football. Remember, we were
Yeah.
saying, I was in Texas. I grew up in Texas. I always thought it was supposed to be that way. And then I recognized that there were others that didn't grow up in Texas high school football that didn't have the same experiences.
Yep.
They didn't know what it could look like. They didn't know what others were. So it's really, they have to, many of these situations we've already talked about, aren't being talked about by their brokers. We have to get that message out there to let them know it is available. And that's, Andy, you and your podcast and you and everything with the bullpen sessions, you are one of the first advocates that are actually allowing this to happen. So that's why I just want to give kudos to what you're doing here, because you're allowing other business owners and other brokers and advisors to say, hey, there is an opportunity, a huge opportunity here to truly, truly help my clients.
Well,
Or-
absolutely. And I'll throw it back to you. I mean, what I'm telling small business owners right now is just don't take the first piece of advice as the truth.
Right.
If you're being told, deal with the increase, this is what it is, there really isn't anything else you can do, you got to push back.
Yeah.
You've got to say,
Andy.
not true. There's got to be a better way. Every small business owner that is around and doing well has done so because they have refused to believe this is just the way it is in all other aspects of their business.
Right.
You got to do the same with health insurance.
You
And
have to.
with you, I'm going to give it, use your analogy. It's like in the NFL, you were a D-back. Your job was to cover some of the fastest men on this planet.
Right.
Too many businesses are playing prevent defense with their health insurance when they should be playing man-to-man press.
Yes.
Right?
Oh, man, that's awesome that you say that. Have you ever noticed that when defenses run prevent, the other team always seems to go down the field
pretty
score?
quick, and they score pretty
You
quick.
ever notice that?
Yeah.
And you're like, wait a minute. We can't give up a touchdown. Okay, another first down. We can't give up a touchdown. Oh, another first down. We can't give up a touchdown, another first down. And then they're inside the red zone. And you're like, oh crap, they're already here now.
Greatest example, and I'm going to probably get the year wrong. I think it was 1991, maybe. Houston Oilers up 34-3, 37-3 at halftime, going to prevent. That coach, that defensive coordinator, the Oilers went from defensive coach of the year to out of a job.
Yep. Yeah.
Because he played prevent and they lost the game.
Yeah, so of course I'm here in Houston and we're still hurt behind that as if it happened last week. Literally, that team was a title team. That was an awesome team. So, and I want to say one more thing that you mentioned earlier. You were talking about the accepting increases from the brokers, which is crazy. The trend has been, around 9 to 12% that, you see every year. And the broker will come back, hey, Blue Cross, United, Cigna, Aetna, they're coming back and they're saying they want to increase your benefits by 9%. And you're like, that's high. And they're like, oh, let me go back and work on it. Then they come back and they say, guess what? I was able to help you out. The benefit increase is only going to be 3%. You're like, yay, my broker did an awesome job for me. This happens year after year after year. And you're like, at some point, you got to recognize you're still accepting 3, 4, 5% increases each year and expecting that is an awesome job. Let's change what the expectations are here.
Yeah. You're being sold on the less bad renewal.
Exactly.
And so, Chris, this has been a wonderful conversation, man. Last question I have for you before we wrap up. Looking back on your NFL career, now you're in helping small businesses. Look back at your NFL career. Is there any lessons you've taken from your career on the football field that you still apply today to business?
Oh, I would say there's tons of them. So the first one we already touched on. You have to surround yourself with individuals that are awesome at what they do and that really, really push you. If you're surrounding yourself with a manager or a salesperson or a marketing person that's not pushing you to be better than what you are, you probably want to look at being change that up a little bit.
Yeah.
So that's probably, that's the one that I really would say hits home the most. The other one is really enjoy where you are, but don't get comfortable. Some of the things about individuals around you pushing you, we were never allowed to get comfortable with success.
I like that.
And I'll leave this last little subset. So working out, as I was telling you, my colleagues at UT pushed me. I went in and I set the DB record for power clean. I'm not going to say the weight or put him out there or anything else like that. So I set that record, went back, told my roommate, said, hey, I just broke the University of Texas defensive back record for power clean. Guess what he did?
Walked back to the weight room and broke it.
Back to the weight room and beat my record.
I love it.
By 1 pound, 1.5 pound. Literally went back in there and did it.
I'd say mic drop, but it's bar drop.
And so so our strength coach at the time came to me and said, Chris, why did you even tell him? I was like, big smile on my face. There's still a big smile on my day. I was like, because that's what we do.
Yeah.
That's literally
awesome.
what we do. We've been pushing and so that's the thing that I would want to leave you with.
Well, Chris, if there's a small business listening in saying, this is our guy, we got to get a hold of him, what's the easiest way to reach out?
Easiest way to reach out, you can check into me on LinkedIn. You can look at Benny Loyal at bennyloyalconsulting.com. You can reach out directly to our office, 281-752-6034. We're located here in Houston, but we are a national brand in terms of we work with advisors nationally. So if your advisor would like to learn a little bit more about some of the items that we're talking about here, without a doubt, we are an open office. We do not believe in trying to hoard any of the technologies, strategies. We will work with your advisor. We'll work with you directly yourself. But again, this is national.
It's been a pleasure, man. If you're a small business listening in, I hope you fed off of this guy's energy because what he said is true. Don't get stuck with believing this is the way it is. You got options. You can compete with the bigger boys if you do make the right decisions. Benefits is one of your biggest overheads on your P&L. Do the right things and you can compete, just like Chris did every day on the field with some of the fastest men on the planet. So, Chris, it's been a pleasure. For everybody else listening in, you know what happens when you get clarity. I hope we gave it to you today. You mix it with confidence. You go do amazing things. So be great today. Be well.
Andy, awesome with me.